In the glittering world of Hollywood music, I was the guy who turned raw talent into pure gold. 15 years, 1 Grammy, and countless platinum records. But that night at the Chateau Marmont changed everything when I discovered just how deep betrayal could cut. Once your new album drops, Empire Records CEO Victor Kane whispered to my wife, "You won't need him anymore. I'll make sure he never produces another track in this town." They thought I was just another producer who'd fade away quietly. Instead, I orchestrated the most devastating takedown in music industry history. When the dust settled, Hollywood's biggest record label lay in ruins. Careers were destroyed, and federal agents were leading people away in handcuffs. This isn't just another story about a cheating wife. This is about power, revenge, and how I turned the music industry's dirtiest secrets into the greatest hit of my career. Ever heard the saying, behind every great artist, there's a great producer? Well, I used to believe that just like I used to believe in love, loyalty, and the magic of music. Now I know better. I'm sharing my story not for sympathy, but as a warning to others who might be too blinded by success to see what's happening right in front of them. My name is Ryan Collins, and until recently, I was living my dream in Los Angeles. I had my own recording studio in Hollywood, a Grammy on my shelf, and what I thought was a rock-solid marriage to Ashley, my wife of 6 years. We met when she was performing at small clubs in Nashville, her voice raw but promising. I saw her potential immediately, both as an artist and as a partner. I helped develop her sound, and together we moved to LA to chase bigger dreams. Looking back, maybe I should have remembered that old saying about being careful what you wish for. This isn't just a story about cheating. It's about power, betrayal, and the dark side of the music industry that nobody warns you about. Everything came crashing down at the Billboard Music Awards after-party, but the warning signs had been there ever since Victor Kane, CEO of Empire Records, signed Ashley to his label. The Los Angeles summer night was electric as I adjusted my designer suit in the mirror of our Hollywood Hills home. The Billboard Music Awards after-party at the Chateau Marmont was the industry's hottest ticket, and Ashley had been obsessing about it for weeks. She'd hired a celebrity stylist, spent a fortune on a custom Versace gown, and even convinced me to upgrade my usual studio casual look to Tom Ford. "We need to look like we belong, Ryan," she said, checking her reflection for the 100th time. "Tonight could change everything for us." I noticed she said us, but her eyes told a different story. They had that distant look I'd been seeing more often lately. Ashley had changed since signing with Empire Records. Her recording sessions ran later and later. Her phone was always face down, and she'd recently changed all her social media passwords, something about her PR team's new policy. The Chateau Marmont was buzzing with energy as we arrived. The historic hotel's garden had been transformed into a music industry paradise. The who's who of the industry mingled under string lights, while the latest hits played at the perfect background volume. Award show highlights played on massive screens, and everywhere you looked, deals were being made over premium cocktails. That's when Victor Kane made his entrance. He moved through the crowd like a king holding court, his signature black suit and red tie making him stand out even in this crowd of celebrities. At 45, he was everything I wasn't: old money, connections everywhere, and a reputation for turning promising artists into superstars. But what caught my attention was Ashley's reaction to his arrival. The way her voice hitched mid-sentence, her cheeks flushed, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for another champagne. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. He was her label boss. Being nervous around him was natural. But I couldn't ignore how his eyes followed her every move, or how his hand rested possessively on her waist during photos, all while maintaining that perfect industry smile. "Ryan, my man," Victor said, clapping me on the shoulder with calculated familiarity. "Ashley's new album is going to be revolutionary. You must be so proud of how far she's come." I forced a smile, taking another sip of my whiskey to mask my unease. "She's always been talented," I replied, watching as Ashley beamed at his praise. If I'd known then that this night would be the beginning of the end, I might have done things differently. But in the music industry, just like in love, timing is everything. The Chateau Marmont's garden was alive with the kind of energy only Hollywood parties can generate. I found myself at the bar, nursing my third whiskey of the night, while watching the scene unfold before me like a music video I couldn't stop playing. Ashley moved through the crowd with practiced grace, stopping to chat with industry executives and fellow artists. But my eyes kept tracking her inevitable orbit around Victor Kane. Every time he entered her space, her body language shifted subtly. Her laughs became more musical, her gestures more animated, her eyes brighter. Victor, for his part, played his role perfectly. He positioned himself just close enough to her at group conversations that their shoulders would brush accidentally. When showing her something on his phone, he'd lean in slightly more than necessary, his cologne probably mixing with her perfume. During photo ops, his hand would rest on her waist a fraction longer than professional courtesy required. I watched as he guided her through a conversation with some Grammy board members, his fingers barely touching her bare back. Ashley didn't flinch or move away. If anything, she seemed to lean into his touch. When had that started? I tried to remember the last industry event where she'd stayed close to me instead of gravitating toward him. The party had several photographers circulating, capturing moments for various entertainment magazines. I noticed how Victor always managed to be in the frame when Ashley was being photographed, while somehow I kept getting pushed to the periphery. At one point, I overheard him telling a Billboard reporter, "Ashley's new sound is going to revolutionize the industry. We're creating something special together." The way he emphasized special made my stomach turn. I watched as he led her to the stage where a small band was playing, his hand on her lower back. When they reached the piano, he whispered something in her ear that made her throw her head back laughing. The photographers went crazy, capturing the moment. Tomorrow it would probably be in every music blog. Empire Records' Victor Kane and rising star Ashley Collins share a moment. The whole scene felt choreographed, like a perfectly produced music video. But I wasn't sure anymore which parts were performance and which were real. As I stood there, watching my wife shine under another man's spotlight, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being written out of my own life soundtrack. As the party at the Chateau Marmont hit its peak, I noticed Ashley checking her phone more frequently. The soft glow of the screen illuminated her face every few minutes, each message bringing a subtle smile to her lips. Victor had disappeared about 10 minutes earlier, excusing himself to take an important call. When Ashley finally stood up from our table, she seemed to choose her words carefully. "I need to discuss some contract details with Victor about the new album. It'll just take a few minutes." She squeezed my shoulder lightly, but wouldn't meet my eyes. "Why don't you network a bit? That new producer from Atlanta wanted to talk about collaboration." I nodded, pretending to be absorbed in my drink. "Sure, take your time." She headed toward the hotel's historic tower, where Empire Records had rented several suites for private meetings. I watched her disappear through the ornate doors, counting to 60 in my head before following. 15 years of studio work had taught me how to move silently, how to find the perfect spot for optimal sound. The corridor of the chateau's second floor was quiet, the thick carpet muffling my footsteps. A sliver of light spilled from beneath the door of Suite 214, Victor's private conference room. I moved closer, positioning myself in the shadow of a large potted palm. Their voices carried clearly through the old building's walls. The acoustics, ironically, were perfect. "Are you sure he doesn't suspect anything?" Victor's voice was low, confident. I heard Ashley sigh. "Ryan's been busy in the studio. He's good at reading sound waves, not people." Victor's laugh was cold. "That's what I figured. Just another producer who got lucky with raw talent. But talent needs proper handling. I don't want to hurt him." Ashley's voice wavered. "He did help me get started. Baby, this is the music industry. Everyone steps on someone on their way up. Besides, once your new album drops and you start touring, you'll barely see him anyway. I've already arranged everything." "What do you mean?" "Let's just say I have friends at every major label and studio in LA. Once I'm done, no one will work with him. He'll be back doing sound mixing for local bands in Nashville before he knows what hit him." My hands curled into fists, nails digging into my palms. I wanted to burst through that door, to confront them both. But years of producing had taught me timing was everything. Sometimes you had to let the track play through before making your mix. "Victor." Ashley's voice was barely a whisper now. "You're sure about this? Trust me, sweetheart. By this time next year, you'll be headlining arenas, and Ryan will be nothing but a footnote in your biography. Now come here." I'd heard enough. Moving silently back down the corridor, my mind was already racing with possibilities. Victor Kane thought he could erase me from the industry. He was about to learn that some producers know how to orchestrate things from behind the scenes. The morning after the Billboard party, I was up with the sun, running on coffee and pure adrenaline. Victor Kane thought he had me against the ropes, but he'd picked the wrong producer to mess with. In this industry, your contacts are your gold, and I'd been stashing away nuggets for years. My first call was to Tommy "the Shark" Martinez, an old-school entertainment lawyer who'd been in the game since vinyl was king. We had history. I'd helped his daughter break into songwriting when every other producer in town had shown her the door. "Ryan, my man, what's shaking?" Tommy's voice boomed through the speaker. "Need some intel on Empire Records, Tommy. The down and dirty kind." There was a pause. "You're playing with fire, brother. Victor Kane doesn't mess around. Neither do I. Not anymore." Tommy sighed. "Let me hit up my sources." "But you didn't hear this from me, capice?" While Tommy worked his magic, I reached out to other industry veterans who owed me favors. Jenny at Billboard magazine, who I'd tipped off about several platinum artists before they hit it big. Marcus at the Recording Academy, whose nephew I'd mentored last summer. Even Sarah at TMZ, though that was my nuclear option. By afternoon, my inbox was blowing up. Turns out Victor's empire was built on quicksand. Cooking the books wasn't just a figure of speech at Empire Records. They'd been inflating streaming numbers, creating ghost playlists, and running a sophisticated payola scheme that would make the mob blush. But the real bombshell came from Tommy. "Check your secure email," he texted. "And Ryan, watch your back." The attachments were pure dynamite. Financial reports showing massive discrepancies. Emails about bribing radio stations. And the piece de resistance, proof that Victor had buried 3 sexual harassment settlements in the past year alone. I was so deep in the documents that I almost missed Ashley coming home. She breezed in, looking like the cat that ate the canary, phone glued to her ear. "Yes, Victor, I'll be there in an hour. The new arrangement is fire." She noticed me and froze. "I'll call you back." I closed my laptop, keeping my poker face on point. "How's the album coming along?" "Oh, you know." She waved vaguely. "It's all happening so fast." "Victor thinks." "I bet he does," I muttered, but flashed her a smile. "Break a leg at the studio." As she hurried upstairs to change, I sent Tommy a quick text. "Game on." The music industry loves a good scandal, and I was about to drop the hottest track of the year. Victor Kane had no idea he was about to face the music. The next few days were a blur of phone calls and secret meetings. I turned my home studio into a command center, walls covered with printouts and sticky notes connecting the dots of Victor's empire. Each new piece of information was another note in the symphony of destruction I was composing. Tommy's contacts were worth their weight in gold. One former Empire Records executive, who'd been pushed out after questioning their accounting practices, provided a treasure trove of internal documents. The numbers didn't just look cooked. They were burnt to a crisp. The streaming numbers for their last 5 major releases, he told me over coffee at a quiet cafe in Venice Beach. Complete fantasy. They've been using bot farms in Eastern Europe to inflate the figures. The actual numbers would make their investors run for the hills. But that was just the opening act. A former HR director reached out through a secure email, her conscience finally getting the better of her after years of silence. She had documented every harassment case Victor had buried, every threat he'd made to keep victims quiet. "He's got a pattern," she explained in our encrypted chat. "Young artists, especially ones with small-time producers. He promises them the world, then holds their careers hostage. Your wife isn't the first, and she won't be the last unless someone stops him." I also discovered that Empire Records was bleeding money from a dozen hidden wounds. Victor had been taking massive loans to keep up appearances, using shell companies to hide the debt. One wrong move, one mispayment, and the whole house of cards would come crashing down. Meanwhile, Ashley's behavior was making my case stronger by the day. She'd stopped even pretending to work on music at home, spending all her time at private recording sessions that somehow never produced any actual recordings. Her phone was constantly buzzing with messages, and she'd jump every time Victor's name appeared on the screen. I kept playing my part, the supportive husband who didn't see what was right in front of him. "How's the album coming along?" I'd ask, watching her scramble for excuses. "Oh, you know how it is," she'd say, not meeting my eyes. "Victor has this amazing vision. He wants everything to be perfect, Perfect. That's what I was aiming for too, but not in the way either of them expected. I'd learned in the studio that timing was everything. You had to let the tension build, let each element come together just right before the beat dropped. The real breakthrough came when Tommy connected me with someone from the Financial Crimes Unit of the FBI. Turns out they'd been building a case against Empire Records for months, but needed someone on the inside to help connect the final dots. This isn't just about cooking books anymore, the agent told me. We're talking money laundering, tax evasion, possibly even connections to organized crime. But we need concrete proof, something that can't be explained away. I smiled, thinking about the upcoming industry gala where Victor was planning to announce Empire's expansion plans to his investors. Give me 2 weeks, I said. I'll give you everything you need. In my studio that night, I looked at the wall of evidence I collected. Victor Kane thought he was the master producer, orchestrating everyone's lives to his rhythm. He was about to learn that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should fear the most. While building my case against Victor, I needed concrete proof of his relationship with Ashley. The financial documents and industry corruption were powerful, but I wanted the full picture. It was time to do some producing of my own. I started by installing a tracking app on Ashley's phone during one of her rare nights home. It wasn't something I was proud of, but I needed to know the truth. The app revealed what I'd suspected. She wasn't spending her nights at Empire Records' main studio, but at Victor's private recording space in Malibu. Next, I placed a small recording device in her car. The conversations I captured were enlightening. Hours of intimate phone calls with Victor, planning their future together, discussing how they would handle the Ryan situation after the upcoming investor gala. Once the expansion announcement goes public, Victor said during one call, "We'll have enough leverage to push him out completely. No studio in LA will touch him after I'm done." Ashley's response was telling. "I just want this to be over. I'm tired of pretending. Soon, baby. Very soon." Their emails were even more damning. I discovered Ashley had set up a secret account, full of explicit messages and attachments. They'd been planning this for months. Victor manipulating her career while systematically undermining mine. The most crucial evidence came from Ashley's laptop. One night, while she was at another late session, I managed to access her files. There were videos from private meetings, photos from secret rendezvous, and detailed plans for after Victor's big announcement. One email thread particularly caught my eye. Victor had outlined his strategy to destroy my reputation in the industry. Plant stories about me stealing other artists' work. Spread rumors about substance abuse affecting my production. Use his connections to ensure no major label would work with me. Force me into bankruptcy through legal challenges. Ashley's enthusiastic responses made it clear she was fully on board with his plans. I documented everything meticulously, making multiple backups. Each piece of evidence was another nail in their coffin, though they didn't know it yet. The industry's biggest story was about to break, and for once, I was the one controlling the narrative. The annual Empire Records Investor Gala was approaching fast. Victor had been promoting it everywhere, promising industry-changing announcements that would revolutionize the music business. Little did he know, I had some announcements of my own planned. I spent the week finalizing my strategy. The FBI agent had been particularly interested in the offshore accounts I'd uncovered. Together, we traced money flowing through a complex network of shell companies, all leading back to Victor's private accounts in the Cayman Islands. "This is exactly what we needed," the agent said during our last meeting. The money laundering charges alone would put him away for years. Tommy had been working his magic too. "I've got 3 major music journalists ready to break the story," he told me. "The moment you give the signal, it'll be all over Billboard, Rolling Stone, and Variety." I'd also arranged for several of Victor's former victims to be present at the gala. Women he'd threatened and silenced over the years, all ready to step forward with their stories. The HR director had helped coordinate everything, making sure each account was documented and verified. The stock exchange was particularly interested in the evidence of fraudulent streaming numbers. The SEC investigator I'd been working with confirmed that this would trigger an immediate trading halt on Empire Records stock. "Once these numbers go public," she explained, "their share price will crater. The shareholders will demand blood." Ashley remained completely oblivious to what was coming. She'd been busy rehearsing her performance for the gala. Victor had planned for her to debut a new song, supposedly showcasing their creative partnership. The night before the gala, she was practically glowing with excitement as she picked up her designer dress from the cleaners. "Victor says tomorrow will change everything," she said, hanging the dress carefully in our closet. I watched her from the doorway. "You're right about that." She turned, catching something in my tone, but I'd already walked away. In my studio, I did one final check of everything. The documents were ready, the journalists were on standby, and the federal agents were prepared to move. I'd even arranged for the building's security cameras to record everything. Tomorrow night, Victor Kane would learn that in the music industry, the biggest hits often come when you least expect them. The Beverly Hilton's International Ballroom was packed with music industry elite. Every major label executive, top-tier artist, and industry insider had turned out for Victor's big announcement. The room buzzed with anticipation as champagne flowed and photographers jostled for position. Ashley had chosen to ride separately, claiming she needed extra time for sound check. I arrived early, positioning myself at the perfect vantage point near the stage. The FBI agents were scattered throughout the crowd, dressed as industry professionals. The journalists were in place, phones and laptops ready. At exactly 8 p.m., Victor took the stage, commanding attention in his signature black suit. Ashley stood slightly behind him, practically glowing in her designer dress. The room fell silent. "Tonight," Victor began, his voice filled with practiced charm, "Empire Records embarks on a new chapter. We're not just announcing an expansion. We're revolutionizing the industry itself." He launched into his presentation, showing graphs of Empire's supposed growth, previewing upcoming releases, and outlining his vision for the future. Each word was another lie, each slide another piece of fiction. "And now," he said, reaching the crescendo of his speech, "I'm proud to announce our newest exclusive artist, and my personal partner in this vision, Ashley Collins." That was my cue. As Ashley stepped forward to the microphone, I nodded to Tommy in the corner. Within seconds, every phone in the room started buzzing. The stories had dropped simultaneously across all major music publications. Victor's speech faltered as he noticed executives reaching for their phones, their expressions changing from interest to shock. The FBI agents began moving through the crowd, positioning themselves strategically. Furthermore, Victor tried to continue, but was interrupted by his own phone ringing. His face drained of color as he read the screen. That's when the main screen behind him, meant to showcase Empire's success, switched to a different presentation, my evidence. Financial records, emails, photos, all displayed in high definition for everyone to see. Victor Kane, the lead FBI agent, announced, stepping onto the stage, "We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of money laundering, fraud, and multiple counts of harassment." The room erupted in chaos. Photographers' cameras flashed frantically, capturing the moment Empire Records CEO was led away in handcuffs. Ashley stood frozen on stage, her perfectly made-up face a mask of horror as she watched her lover and her future crumble simultaneously. I caught her eye across the room. "The recording sessions are over," I said, just loud enough for her to hear. Within hours, Empire Records stock was suspended from trading. The board of directors called an emergency meeting. Victor's empire was collapsing, and with it, all his promises to Ashley. As I walked out of the ballroom, leaving behind the chaos I'd orchestrated, my phone buzzed with a message from Tommy. "Track dropped. It's a hit." The days following the Empire Records Gala were a hurricane of headlines and chaos. Victor's arrest dominated entertainment news, with every outlet running exposés on Empire's corruption. The company's stock plummeted 80% in the first hour of trading after the suspension was lifted. Major artists began terminating their contracts, jumping ship like rats from a sinking vessel. The federal investigation expanded rapidly. FBI agents raided Empire's offices, carting away boxes of documents and hard drives. 3 board members resigned immediately, distancing themselves from the scandal. The company's partners and distributors scrambled to cut ties, afraid of being tainted by association. Victor's legal troubles mounted by the hour. The SEC filed formal charges for securities fraud. 5 more women came forward with harassment allegations. The IRS launched an investigation into his personal finances. His high-powered legal team was working overtime, but even they couldn't spin this disaster. Ashley's world crumbled just as spectacularly. Her recording contract was terminated due to a morality clause. The upcoming album was shelved indefinitely. Music blogs that had praised her talent now questioned whether her success had been earned or bought. Her social media accounts went dark after a flood of negative comments. She came home late the night after the gala. Mascara streaked down her face. "Ryan," she started, her voice breaking. "I can explain." "Save it," I said, not looking up from my laptop where I was reading about Victor's arraignment. "Your stuff is packed in the guest room. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce." "Please," she begged. "I didn't know about all the illegal things." Victor said a lot of things," I interrupted. "And you believed every word while planning to destroy my career." "I heard it all, Ashley. Every conversation, every plan, every promise." She collapsed into a chair, the reality of her situation finally hitting home. Her lover was facing serious prison time. Her career was in shambles. Her reputation was destroyed. And her marriage was over. "What am I supposed to do now?" she whispered. "That's not my problem anymore." I stood up, gathering my things. "I've already filed for divorce. You might want to find a good lawyer. The feds will probably want to talk to you about your role in all this." As I headed upstairs, my phone buzzed with another news alert. Empire Records board announces company will file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. I smiled slightly. Victor's empire hadn't just crumbled. It had been systematically demolished. My career, contrary to Victor's plans, was thriving. Multiple artists had reached out, wanted to work with the producer who took down Empire. Several labels had made offers. The industry respected someone who could play the game better than the supposed masters. That night, I sat in my studio, looking at the wall where I'd mapped out my revenge. Everything had worked perfectly, like a well-produced track where every element hits at exactly the right moment. Victor Kane had tried to steal my life's work, but in the end, he'd only orchestrated his own downfall. 6 months after the Empire Records scandal, I sat in my new recording studio in the Hollywood Hills, listening to the final mix of what would become my biggest hit to date. The view of Los Angeles stretched out before me, the city lights twinkling like stars fallen to earth. So much had changed, yet in many ways, everything had simply fallen into its proper place. Victor's trial had been the entertainment industry's biggest story for months. The evidence was overwhelming. Decades of fraud, manipulation, and corruption laid bare for all to see. The prosecution had built an airtight case, aided by numerous victims who finally felt safe enough to come forward. In the end, he accepted a plea deal: 15 years in federal prison, forfeiture of assets, and a lifetime ban from any involvement in the music industry. Empire Records didn't survive the scandal. After filing for bankruptcy, its assets were sold off piece by piece. The iconic building in downtown LA, once a symbol of music industry power, now housed a tech startup. The company's catalog was divided among various labels, its employees scattered to the winds. It was amazing how quickly an empire could crumble when its foundation was revealed to be built on lies. Ashley's fall from grace was equally spectacular, though in a different way. The industry blacklist she and Victor had planned for me became her reality instead. No major label would touch her, fearing association with the scandal. She tried releasing music independently, but the audience had moved on. Her social media followers dwindled, her streaming numbers dropped to nothing, and her name became synonymous with the scandal rather than success. The divorce was finalized 3 months after the gala. She didn't contest anything. She couldn't afford to, both financially and reputation-wise. During our final meeting at the lawyer's office, she looked nothing like the confident star she'd been that night at the Chateau Marmont. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. The sparkle in her eyes had dimmed, replaced by a haunted look that spoke of sleepless nights and endless regrets. "I'm sorry," she said as we signed the papers. "I got lost in the fantasy he was selling. The fame, the success, the power. It all seemed so real." "It was real," I replied, sliding the signed documents back to our lawyers. "It just wasn't built to last." That was the last time I saw her. According to industry gossip, she moved back to Nashville, trying to rebuild her career in the smaller venues where we'd first met. Sometimes I wondered if she ever thought about how different things might have been if she'd chosen loyalty over ambition. My own career, ironically, soared in the aftermath of the scandal. The industry respected how I'd handled the situation, admiring both the precision of my revenge and my professional discretion afterward. I never gave interviews about what happened, never wrote a tell-all book, or tried to capitalize on the drama. I let my work speak for itself. Major artists started seeking me out, wanted to work with a producer who'd outsmarted the legendary Victor Kane. I was selective about my projects, choosing quality over quantity. My new studio, built with part of the settlement money from Empire Records bankruptcy, became known as a place where real music was made, free from the industry's darker influences. Looking back now, I realized that Victor had been right about one thing. The music industry was changing, but not in the way he'd envisioned. The fall of Empire Records had sparked a movement toward transparency and accountability. New safeguards were put in place to prevent financial fraud. Artist contracts were reformed to provide better protection. The industry was slowly becoming a better place, though it would never be perfect. As I sat there in my studio, watching the sun set over Los Angeles, I thought about the path that had led me here. The betrayal had been painful, but it had also been necessary. It had shown me what I was capable of, what I would fight for, and most importantly, what I would never become. I turned back to my mixing board, ready to start work on the next project. In the end, the best revenge wasn't just destroying what had hurt you. It was building something better from the ashes. That was the real power of production, taking separate elements and combining them into something greater than their parts. I had produced not just music, but justice, and that was the sweetest harmony of all.